11 loses her powers permanently and chooses to stay powerless for the first time in her life. After 4 seasons of 11's abilities, shaping her identity, and serving as the main weapon against every supernatural threat, one possible ending takes all of that away and makes it a choice rather than a tragedy. She lost her powers at the end of Season 3, spent months feeling hollow without them, then fought her way through psychological turmoil to get them back in Season 4. But what if Season 5 forces her to burn them out in one final surge against Vecna? Here's the twist that would make the moment resonate, instead of simply hurting. When she is offered a chance to regain her abilities through Dr. K's program or some new method, she refuses because she finally understands that being 11, the weapon, has stopped her from becoming Jane the person. Her entire story has revolved around identity. Whether she is a number or a name, a tool or a daughter, someone valued for power or valued simply for existing. Choosing to stay powerless would mean choosing her humanity over being special, and accepting that she does not need telekinesis to be worthy of the family she built. Mike would tell her she has always been enough without powers. Joyce and Hopper would back whatever path she takes. And if Max survives, she would probably be relieved to have a friend dealing with normal teenage chaos instead of dimensional threats. The final image could show her in a classroom as Jane Hopper, tapping a pencil, sighing through algebra, and living the quiet, ordinary life she has been denied since childhood. But the question hangs in the air. Would Stranger Things really let its most powerful character walk away from destiny so easily? 11 becomes so powerful she transcends physical form and merges with the Upside Down to control it from within. This is the cosmic horror ending, where 11 does not defeat Vecna through any familiar kind of fight, but by becoming something beyond human comprehension. Her abilities evolve past their breaking point until she is no longer a girl with powers, but a consciousness stretched across dimensions. The theory suggests that her constant use of psychic strength in Season 5 pushes her toward a transformation that Brenner may have imagined but never reached, turning a human mind into something that can exist in multiple realities at once. She would become what Vecna believes himself to be, only stronger and far more deeply woven into the fabric of the Upside Down. The bittersweet truth is that rising to that level means leaving behind every piece of her human life, including her body and relationships. She would die as Jane or 11 and be reborn as a presence that can seal the Upside Down from within by becoming its new guiding force. Mike would lose the girl he loves, even though she is technically still alive, only existing in a plane of reality he cannot see or speak to. Hopper would lose his daughter to a fate. That feels even harsher than death because he would know she is out there somewhere, transformed into something vast and solitary, forever out of reach from the family that showed her what it means to love. It is a triumphant ending wrapped inside a tragedy, saving the world by giving up her humanity and becoming the very kind of entity she has fought against since the beginning. Reddit would explode with theories and arguments because this ending is too bold and too sorrowful to ignore, yet unforgettable in a way simple, happy endings never manage to be. And as fans try to make sense of that possibility, another ending pulls the story back to where it all began. 11 sacrifices herself to kill Vecna, and her death closes the gates permanently. This would be the tragic hero ending fans have feared since Season 1, the moment where she sacrifices herself to shut him down for good. She understands that the only way to sever his hold on Earth is to destroy both of them together, collapsing their connection into nothing while the gates seal for the last time. Mike would witness it in real time, shouting for her not to go through with it, begging for a solution that will never appear, because some threats cannot be beaten without giving something up. She would look at him one last time with the soft, sad smile she has developed over the years, and tell him she is not afraid because he showed her what courage feels like. Then she would turn back to Vecna, seize him with a psychic grip he cannot break, and trigger a mutual destruction that lights the Upside Down like a dying star. The aftermath would show the gates pulling shut, the vines curling into dust, the red lightning dimming, and the party standing in Hawkins while ash drifts around them as they try to understand how they won yet lost 11 in the same moment. It is an ending built to devastate viewers while still feeling true to the themes of the show, proving that some victories require sacrifice and not every hero gets to see the world they save. The final moments could show Mike years later, older and changed, visiting a memorial for 11 and remembering the girl who stepped into his life during a storm and left the world glowing like a supernova. Still, some fans believe the series may choose a path that avoids devastation in favor of something more hopeful. By the way, if you're a Stranger Things fan, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe. It helps more than you know. 11 survives, keeps her powers, and gets to be both hero and normal teenager simultaneously. This is the optimistic ending where she no longer has to choose between being human and being extraordinary, because the story finally allows her to hold both without consequence. She defeats Vecna through teamwork and strategy instead of self-sacrifice, finds a way to close the gates without giving up her life, and steps out of the chaos exhausted but alive with her abilities still in place. The epilogue would show her at Hawkins High as Jane Hopper, moving through crowded hallways, going to dances, and slipping into a life she once thought impossible while still using her powers for small moments of kindness. Lost pets reappear, bullies back off, and heavy objects shift across rooms with no explanation. She would finally reach the balance she has chased since Season 1, being special without becoming a weapon and carrying powers without letting them define her entire existence. Mike would be her boyfriend rather than her shield, their relationship free from constant world-ending pressure. Hopper and Joyce would guide her through ordinary teenage chaos, arguing over curfews while she rolls her eyes and complains about being treated like a kid even though she has saved the world more than once. It feels almost too bright for Stranger Things, a show known for victories that come with sharp edges. But after 8 years of loss and trauma, the idea that she might earn a simple happy ending is not as strange as it sounds. Reddit would split between people grateful she finally gets peace and people insisting the ending is too soft. But honestly, after everything she has survived, softness might be the point. Still, there is another ending that keeps the happiness but adds an unsettling twist. 11 rewrites reality using her powers and erases everyone's memories of the Upside Down, including her own. What if that surge gives 11 abilities beyond anything the show has hinted at, allowing her to shape not only physical reality but memory and perception themselves? The theory suggests she could defeat Vecna and then rewrite the entire history of Hawkins by erasing the Upside Down from every mind on Earth. If nobody remembers the gates or the creatures or the invasions, then, in a very real sense, those horrors never happened at all. The real cost is that she would have to erase her own memories too, because her consciousness is tied so tightly to the Upside Down that selective removal would be impossible. She would forget everything, including Mike, Hopper, and the family she fought so hard to keep. She would revert to a girl who never knew she had powers, never faced the monsters that shaped her, and never realized how deeply she mattered. The final episode would show a world slightly shifted, with Mike and his friends rolling dice in a basement and laughing over D&D campaigns that never echoed real danger. It is a happy ending with a quiet fracture running through it, saving everyone by ensuring that nobody remembers they needed saving at all, which would split the fandom between admiring the sacrifice and resenting that the story erased its own legacy. But some theories suggest the ending might not come from a choice she makes, but from consequences she has been avoiding since childhood. 11 dies from the cumulative damage of using her powers for years, and there's nothing anyone can do to stop it. It starts quietly, with symptoms that feel too familiar to ignore, the kind of pain that makes the room tilt as her powers flicker in ways that no longer feel normal. This is the tragedy disguised as a medical drama, the ending where 11's abilities have been wearing her down since childhood, and Season 5 is when her body finally reaches its limit. Every nosebleed has been a warning sign. Every moment of pushing herself harder has chipped away at her lifespan. Brenner knew the risk, and chose to ignore it because he saw her as a tool rather than a daughter. And now the cost of years of psychic strain arrives in a form she cannot fight. She would begin showing symptoms in Volume 1 migraines, disorientation, seizures, and tests would reveal her brain has been deteriorating beyond repair, damaged by powers human biology was never meant to carry. The real horror comes from the realization that there is no villain to defeat, no creature to outsmart, only a girl fading because the world asked too much of her for too long. Mike would refuse to accept it, searching for answers that simply do not exist. Hopper would struggle with the idea that he survived brutal experiences only to face a threat he cannot stop or even touch. The party would try everything they can think of, going through Brenner's files, contacting former researchers, exploring experimental treatments, and even considering whether letting Vecna take her might somehow buy more time. But eventually they would have to face the truth that 11 is dying, and the only thing left is to make sure she is not alone. Her final scenes would show her telling the people she loves how much they meant to her, finding peace in a short life that carried more meaning than most long ones. She would die surrounded by the family she chose while Mike holds her hand and pretends he is not falling apart. It is cruel in a way that feels painfully real, a kind of ending that fantasy stories rarely dare to show, which is exactly why the Duffer Brothers might hesitate to go this far. And from that bleak possibility, another ending appears that pushes the show into stranger territory. 11 survives and finally gets to be ordinary, living quietly as Jane Hopper with no powers and no spotlight. It begins with a world finally going quiet, the kind of stillness that feels strange after years of alarms, monsters, and battles. After 8 years of being special, being hunted, and being needed for her power, What if the ending is simply that 11 gets to stop? The gates close, Vecna falls, the threats vanish, and 11, drained of her abilities for good but alive and free, steps into a life she has never been allowed to live. She would go to school and complain about dull teachers. She would sit in a movie theater with friends without scanning the shadows for demogorgons. She would argue with Mike about normal relationship problems instead of life or death choices. Joyce would ground her for missing curfew, rather than for sneaking into secret facilities. She would get a part-time job and deal with rude customers instead of government agents. It sounds almost too quiet after everything she has survived. But maybe that is the point. The greatest gift anyone could offer 11 might be the freedom to be ordinary, to blend into the background of a peaceful town where nobody needs her to be a miracle. The final image could show her at graduation, or starting college, or doing something small and familiar like grocery shopping, while Mike jokes about carrying too many bags. It would be a gentle, steady kind of peace, the kind she has been denied since childhood. No more being special, just Jane, living the life she was never allowed to have. But not every ending lets her walk away so easily. 11 becomes the anchor that holds two realities. Apart, this theory suggests that Vecna's defeat triggers a chain reaction that tears the barrier between dimensions into something unstable, a place where the worlds begin to bleed together. Buildings flicker. Shadows move where nothing stands. The air hums with static that raises goosebumps on anyone who steps outside. The only way to stop the complete merging of both realities is for someone to hold the boundary in place from the inside. That someone is 11. Her powers, already pushed to their limits, adapt in a way nobody expects. Instead of destroying the connection, she stabilizes it by anchoring herself to both sides at once. She exists in Hawkins and in the dark mirror of Hawkins at the same time, a living bridge that keeps the worlds from collapsing into each other. She can still speak, still think, still feel, but she is never entirely here or entirely there. Mike reaches for her, but his hand passes through a shimmer of air that looks like heat rising from pavement. It is not death, but it is not life either. She becomes a guardian unseen, the silent force that keeps the world intact while the people she loves move forward without her. And fans would argue for years whether she saved the world or surrendered herself to it. But the last ending rewrites the entire story from the first scene onward. 11 closes the Upside Down by erasing her own origin. It begins with a moment of clarity in the middle of the final battle, a flash where 11 sees not just Vecna, but the entire path that led to this war. The gates, the creatures, the psychic experiments, the destruction of Hawkins, all of it traces back to a single origin point, her birth, her creation, the moment Brenner pushed her mind into the dark and opened something that should have stayed sealed forever. This theory suggests that the only way to end everything is for 11 to remove her own origin from the chain of events, not by dying, but by stepping into the memory of her younger self and closing the door that started it all. She walks through a vision of the old lab, past flickering lights and the echo of her childhood screams, until she reaches the moment she first touched the Upside Down, the moment her power split the world open. She takes the memory in her hands, the one that shaped every season, and quietly chooses to end it. When she lets it fade, the Upside Down collapses like a breath exhaled for the last time. Hawkins heals. The sky clears. Life continues as if no gates ever existed. 11 survives, but the world forgets who she was because her story never began. And she walks into a quiet future as Jane Hopper, finally free of the destiny she never asked for. So, which ending does 11 deserve after everything the universe has thrown at her? Drop your votes in the comments below.